As we all know, Kenyans, we pride ourselves being the leaders of East Africa in all aspects. And therefore, it sometimes comes as a surprise to many Kenyans that our East African brothers have either overtaken us in one area or the other. And I think quite a number of people got shocked. There was a clip going around that indeed Uganda is selling a lot of more coffee than we do. And asking, is it possible? Is it true? And I can say yes. Uganda definitely exported way more coffee than we did, but you have to look at it from different aspects. You look at the truth of the matter is Uganda has more coffee than we do. They produce more coffee than we do. If you look at all the indicators, what is the land under coffee? Land under coffee in Kenya is about 280,000 acres. That is about 113,000 hectares. So about 280,000 acres is the land under coffee in Kenya. In Uganda, we have 1.4 million acres of land under coffee. That's almost six times Kenya. So it is therefore not surprising when you hear that there are more on every case there'll be more than 5 times. When you look at the number of bushes, Uganda produces both Arabica and Robusta. But basically more Robusta. The Kenya, we are 100% Arabic. But if you look at both the number of bushes, Kenya on average we have about total of 170 million coffee bushes. Uganda on the other hand has 900 million bushes of coffee, of which 750 million is about Robusta and Arabica is 150 million. So even Arabica, Ugandan Arabica is almost exactly like our Arabica. So Arabica is 170 million, Uganda has Arabica 150 million. But then they have another 750 that is Robusta. So we look at it to see, indeed, Uganda has. And then what about the total production? This we are looking at the clean coffee that's ready for export, because the local consumption between both countries not significant. It's about below 5%, so it's not significant. So that we'll not discuss it in details. Let's look at the total production or what is exported. In 2023-2024, Kenya production is about 49,500 tons. 49,500 tons. Uganda, on the other hand, had about 414,000 metric tons. About 6.9 million bags, 6 kg bags. Kenya was about 700 or about 800,000 bags. So you can see again, when it comes to output, Uganda is about 8 times Kenya. But then you look at it, what about the yield per bush? The yield per bush. Kenya on average, we about 183 kgs of cherry per bush. But then you look at Uganda, they are also not so high, but they are still ahead. Robusta, they're about 2.43 kgs per bush, Arabica about 2.7. So they're almost slightly higher than Kenya, but it is good. It is important at this point to understand that in the 80s, 90s, on average, Kenyan bush was producing 15 kilos. So this, even for both countries, we seem not to be doing too well. We can easily Arabica coffee, you can easily push it to 15, 20 kilos. I mean, even in Kenya, there are some farmers harvesting 30 consistently without a problem in different counties. It's only now that when it goes to the average, majority of our farmers are not doing too well. That brings down the average. So when we look at the people, who are the people that are impacted by, or rather, not necessarily impact, what are the people who produce it? How many households produce coffee directly? In Kenya, is recorded about 800,000 farming households. In Uganda, you have 1.8 million households. And if you look at Kenya, I think rural households, the size is about 5. So Kenya, you're talking about 4 million people. Uganda, you are talking about maybe nearly 6 million, about 6 million or so people. So in every aspect, Uganda goes way higher than us in all the coffee producing areas and but then we look at how does the Kenya coffee value chain compare with that of Uganda. The coffee value chain of Kenya has more nodes, those who know about value chain or steps. So you move from production. Kenya is produced. We have both at production. We have cooperatives and farms. Then from production, we go to pulping. Coffee goes through pulping, and pulping in most cases is done on either on the cooperative factories or the pulping centers, or in their own farms owned pulping centers. Then from there, coffee is pulped, is dried again in the factory and taken to the dry mills. That time, the chain of custody in Kenya has not changed. The coffee still belongs to the farmer. When it is milled, then the cooperative, the coffee is now taken up by either in the warehouses. And then from the warehouses, when the farmer determines how he want to see how they want to sell it. If they want to go through the auction, then they appoint a broker who takes the coffee through the auction, and it is bought by the dealers and it's exported or used locally. If at that time they have a direct buyer, then from the milling warehousing, then it is exported directly and they are paid. So you can see the Kenyan value chain, the chain of custody, the farmer owns the coffee from production all the way until it is traded. How different is this from Uganda? Uganda, the interesting case, their value chain is slightly shorter from a farmer's perspective, because when the farmers produce their cherry, those who are in cooperatives, they now either process it through their cooperative, or there is a category of people who now the private sector comes in and they purchase the cherry from the farm gate, from wherever, and then they take over other roles. Processing the farmers, the chain of custody, that the farmer immediately produce a coffee at the farm gate, they're able to sell, and that's it, take the money, then the private sector take on the other stages, pulping, trading, and all that. So that is maybe the only thing I can say is most significant in terms of, from a farmer perspective, the Kenyan value chain is much longer, the Uganda's perspective is a little bit shorter. Then you look at where do these where does the coffee go? Incidentally, coffee, most of it is Kenya and Uganda. They still Kenya is like 17% of the Kenyan coffee goes to the EU, and then in the US 16%, Germany, and few other countries. So I think you still see Kenya about 40% of our coffee still goes to EU, and in Uganda 75% goes. So that means that they are both countries are impacted by EUDR, the European Union deforestation regulation, and most of them are doing something about it. But then you look at what are the institutional, so whatever in both countries, even look at it from the institutional driver or the policy perspectives, they are both going through the EUDR. Kenya, we have the Coffee Bill 2024 that we hope that will be completed and assented, because currently is at the mediation stage within the Senate. I think we'll talk about that later. And then in Uganda is basically now pushing more the farmer registration and the EUDR of traceability. So yes, that is the situation. And for brothers in Uganda, I urge you, please keep doing a good job. Increase the yield. The yield per bush is okay, but you can double, you can triple. Less this region, you have more coffee. Kenya, our coffee used to produce 5-7 times than we are producing now. Let's get there and see how we can go out there. Ladies and gentlemen, take your coffee, man. Thank you.